I think what's really behind the phrase, it's okay to not be okay, is an acknowledgement similar to what I say when I go off stream every night, which is when I say your experiences are valid. Whatever your emotional experience is, whether it is happy, sad, frustrated, overjoyed, disgusted, depressed, whatever it may be, it is okay to feel that. And in fact, I would argue it's important to feel that. It is important to know at any given time what our emotional experience is, because that is a direct result of the way in which our brain is processing the external environment, whether it's what's actually happening or whether it's something that we've constructed in our heads. So when people say it's okay to not be okay, what they're saying is you are going to have days where you experience other emotions besides happiness. You're going to have days where you feel sad. You're going to have days where you just don't have as much energy as you might normally have. And that's okay. That we experience happiness and excitement relative to those other states of being. And the reason why it's okay to feel and be those ways is because we can't directly change those just by wanting to change it. If you're sad about something, you don't just get to say to yourself or have somebody say to you, don't be sad. It doesn't work. Never has. In the history of the universe. I don't know that I've ever heard of anybody ever saying to somebody who is sad, stop being sad. And that person immediately was like, oh, you're right. I'm happy now. It's not how emotions work. The thing that I talk about on stream all the time as it relates to this stuff is you acknowledge what your emotional experience is, you validate it for yourself, you acknowledge it for what it is, the intensity of what it is, and then we make decisions about what to do in terms of how we make meaning of that emotional experience and what we choose to do behaviorally with that emotional experience. Those are the things for us to be held accountable to. So if you're a person who is feeling depressed, that's okay. You can feel depressed. It may not be fun to feel depressed. It may feel pretty damn awful to be depressed. Most people don't like the feeling of being depressed. But in the grand scheme of things, objectively, being depressed is not a bad thing. It just is. If the way that a person moves through their depression is to make various cognitive choices that hold the depression's power in place, such as saying things like, I'm a depressed person, I can't do anything, I don't care, etc., etc. Those are things that can kind of keep depression in place. If you then also choose to stay in bed for 14 hours a day and not eat and shut the world out and make sure your room is dark, those are all things that we know are going to continue to perpetuate your depression. If you skip work, if you skip school, those are things that have really bad ramifications for your life that are also likely going to exacerbate the depression, because you're going to start to notice that things that you need to be attending to aren't being attended to. So we can hold people accountable for that. You can be angry. Being angry is okay. Being angry is not a bad thing. If you punch a wall, if you punch somebody else, that's not okay. That's what's not okay. The manifestation of an emotional experience via cognition and behavior is what can be problematic, what people need to be held accountable to and change, because depending on how you respond to your emotional experience, you can either amplify it or dampen it or change it over to something else. That takes time. When I hear people say it's okay to not be okay, that's my interpretation of it, is people allowing space for things other than just happiness. It's okay to be other things. Doesn't necessarily say that it's good or bad. Emotions are not things to qualify. We have this really horrible habit of qualifying people's emotions as being good or bad, desirable and undesirable. But our behaviors are ultimately the things that are desirable or not desirable. I think it's really important because it really underlies a lot of things that I think about as a therapist, and a lot of things that just we do as human beings. Like, we have so many theories and so much research that shows when people are validated for their emotional experience, they make better decisions, they can problem solve better. The first thing I learned when I worked on the suicide hotline was how to empathize. was how to listen for a person's emotional experience and validate it. And you never go to problem solving until you have found that and you validate it and a person feels heard, ever. And that, I learned that my sophomore year of college at a crisis line. And that has literally laid the foundation for just about every single thing I have ever done as a therapist all these years later, 11 years later.